Long before engines and steel machines, the world ran on the strength, speed, and spirit of horses. Some were bred to race over brutal terrain, others to haul staggering loads, and some to command attention in royal courts. They built cities, won wars, and connected distant worlds. And then they vanished.
He reportedly owns more than 600 Acalteques, which is almost 10% of the world's total.
Now all that remains are their stories, relics, and rare traces in modern bloodlines. Join us as we uncover 20 horse breeds that shaped history before disappearing forever. Number 20. Turkoman horse.
The Acaltec is a special horse from Turkmenistan, known for its beautiful glowing coat. Because of their beauty and speed, people sometimes call them the horse from heaven.
The Turkoman was basically the sports car of the desert, sleek, fast, and built to leave everyone else eating sand. It stood around 60 to 64 inches at the shoulder, with a long neck, thin skin, fine legs, and barely any mane or tail. This was not some slow, heavy workhorse pulling wagons in a muddy field. It was a raider's dream, made for speed and survival in brutal heat. Its closest living relative, the Acalteque, is famous for that unbelievable metallic shine. In 1935, Turkmen riders proved just how tough these horses were. They took Acalteques from Ashgabat to Moscow, about 2,580 miles, in only 84 days. That included crossing more than 200 miles of desert without water for nearly 3 days. Most horses would have dropped halfway, but the Turkoman blood kept them going. This wasn't just a horse, it was part of the soul of the Turkmen tribes. Their traditions of breeding and decorating Acalteques are so important that they've been recognized by UNESCO as part of the world's cultural heritage. Today, there are only about 6,000 to 7,000 Acalteques left, most in Turkmenistan, with smaller numbers in Europe and North America. And they're not just pretty showpieces. An Acalteque stallion named Absinthe won Olympic gold in dressage in 1960, then came back for bronze in 1964. That's the old Turkoman heart, still beating hard in the modern world. Number 19. Tarpan horse. The Tarpan was Europe's last truly wild horse. A compact, rugged survivor that could endure winters that would kill most domestic breeds. Standing about 52 to 56 inches tall, its coat was a muted dun or mouse gray, its legs dark, and a faint stripe ran along its back, all natural camouflage against the windswept steppe. For centuries it roamed free, but as farms spread and hunters closed in, its numbers collapsed. Mixing with domestic horses only sped the loss. By 1879, the last confirmed wild tarpan was dead. The final captive lived into the early 1900s, often said to be 1909, and with its passing, the species was gone. Today, only Przewalski's horse of Mongolia holds the title of the world's last true wild horse. The tarpans seen in some parks and zoos are imitations. In the 1930s, German zoologists created the Heck horse by breeding hardy domestic stock with a touch of Przewalski blood to recreate the tarpan's look. Conic horses are also often marketed as descendants, and while they do carry some steppe ancestry and work well in rewilding projects, science confirms they are not true tarpans. What survives now is not the real wild horse that once thundered across Europe, but only its shadow, an animal that reminds us how quickly a species can vanish when humans take too much and give too little. Number 18. Old English Black Horse. Long before tractors, trucks, and engines, Britain's farms, markets, and cities ran on the raw power of huge working horses, and in Lincolnshire and the Midlands, the most famous was the Old English Black. This 17th century giant was the direct ancestor of today's Shire horse, built to pull fully loaded wagons, heavy plows, and carts stacked with goods. Often black, but not always, these animals were massive. Modern Shires stand just over 68 inches tall and can weigh close to 2,000 pounds, showing how big their ancestors were. Their size and strength were centuries in the making. Medieval great horses were already huge, but when Dutch engineers came to drain the fenlands, they brought strong Flemish and Frisian horses that added even more muscle. Breeder Robert Bakewell later refined them into the Black Horse of Leicestershire, setting the standard for the Shire. One stallion, the Packington Blind Horse, who lived from 1755 to 1770, became the most important sire, with many modern shires tracing back to him. These horses didn't just work on farms, they also hauled heavy boats along canals during the Industrial Revolution, moving loads far too big for road carts. As engines took over, the Old English Black disappeared as its own breed, but its power lives on in the sheer horse, still one of the most impressive working animals in the world. Number 17. Abaco Barb. On the island of Great Abaco in the Bahamas, a small herd of hardy Spanish-type horses managed to survive for over 100 years. They were known as Abaco Barbs, and sadly, they went extinct in our lifetime. The last one, a mare named Nunki, died on July 23, 2015, and with her, the breed was lost forever. Their story began in the late 1800s, when Cuban logging companies brought Spanish-bred horses to work in the island's pine forests. DNA testing later proved they had Iberian and Spanish colonial roots, making them direct descendants of the horses the Spanish brought to the Americas. For decades, they lived quietly on the island, and locals remembered their numbers once being around 200. By the 1970s, only a few were left, but thanks to the efforts of Milan Mimi Rehor, the herd grew back to about 35 by the mid-1990s. Then disaster struck. In 1999, Hurricane Floyd tore through the island, destroying much of the forest undergrowth the horses depended on for food. Desperate, they began grazing on a nearby citrus farm, but the land had been treated with pesticides and herbicides. Breeding stopped completely, and their numbers fell year after year. The government set aside about 3,800 acres for a preserve, but it was too late. When Nunki died, the Abaco Barb was gone. There is still hope. Tissue from Nunki was saved, and there are plans to try cloning and rebuild the herd using related Spanish colonial horses. It's a difficult goal, but the effort continues. Number 16. Anglo-Norman Horse. In the early 1800s, breeders in Normandy, France wanted a horse that could do it all. They crossed strong local Norman mares with speedy thoroughbreds and durable Norfolk Trotters. The goal was a horse with a long, smooth stride, the toughness to work long hours, and the speed to handle both riding and carriage work. The result was the Anglo-Norman, a horse just as comfortable pulling a light carriage through town as it was carrying a soldier into battle. Under Emperor Napoleon III, it became France's main cavalry horse, known for its mix of endurance and power. In 1873, the Boucher Law gave the breed a huge push forward. This law funded breeding programs and helped the army buy more Anglo-Normans, making them a common sight in military service through the late 1800s. After the World Wars, motor vehicles replaced horses for transport, so the Anglo-Norman shifted to sports, like show jumping. A national stud book opened in 1950, but just 8 years later, in 1958, France merged the Anglo-Norman with other regional saddle horses to create the Selle Français. That merger ended the Anglo-Norman as a separate breed, but its blood became the foundation of the new one. Its influence was impossible to miss. For decades, Norman bloodlines were the most common in Selle Français pedigrees. One of the most famous Anglo-Normans, Luther B, carried Pierre-Joncaire d'Oriola to an Olympic gold medal in show jumping at the 1964 Tokyo Games. The name may be gone, but the Anglo-Norman's heart and power still live on in the champions of today. Number 15. Narragansett Pacer. In the 1700s, in Rhode Island, breeders made a horse unlike anything America had seen before. It was small, fast, and could travel for hours without bouncing the rider around. This was the Narragansett Pacer. At a time when most roads were just rough dirt tracks, this horse could glide over them smoothly, making long trips far more comfortable. It was the go-to mount for doctors, judges, mail riders, and anyone who needed to cover miles quickly. On weekends, these same horses often raced for fun, proving they were as fast as they were comfortable. Word spread quickly, and soon shiploads of pacers were being sent to the Caribbean, where plantation owners wanted horses that could be ridden all day over uneven ground. That high demand meant fewer horses stayed in New England, and by the 1800s the breed had vanished. But it left a huge mark on American horse history. Its blood helped create three major breeds: the standard bred for harness racing, the American saddlebred, and the Tennessee walking horse. Without the Pacer, America might never have developed its love for smooth, easy-riding horses. Most experts agree it was gone by the mid-1800s, but its influence is still alive today. Number 14. Tennessee Pacer. In the late 1700s, settlers moving into Middle Tennessee brought smooth-gaited horses with them. They didn't all come from one place. Some were Narragansett Pacers from New England. Some were Canadian Pacers from up north, and others had Spanish Mustang blood. Farmers in Tennessee began breeding these horses together, keeping the best ones for riding and work. Over time, this mix developed into a local type called the Tennessee Pacer. These horses were strong and dependable, able to cover long distances on the rocky hills and still give a smooth, easy ride. They were the kind of horse you could ride all week to check fences and then hitch to a cart on the weekend without wearing them out. In 1886, a black colt named Black Allen was born. He was part standard bred and part Morgan thoroughbred mix. He preferred to pace, but could also do the smooth running walk that riders loved. Breeders crossed Black Allen with the local Tennessee Pacers, making the horses bigger, stronger, and even better for long-distance riding. In 1935, the Tennessee Walking Horse Registry was created, and the old Tennessee Pacer name slowly disappeared. The blood of those Narragansett and Canadian Pacers, along with Morgan, standard-bred, thoroughbred, and American saddlebred lines, is still there today, alive in every Tennessee walking horse that glides past with that easy, head-nodding stride. Number 13. Irish Hobby. Long before guns or tanks, a small horse from Ireland changed the way battles were fought. The Irish Hobby was light, fast, and tough, raised in Ireland long before the 1200s. Standing about 48 to 56 inches tall, it could race over rough ground, make sharp turns, and keep going for hours without getting tired. Soldiers used them to create a new type of fighter called the hobilar, light cavalry that could scout ahead, raid enemy camps, and vanish before slow, heavy knights could react. They became so valuable that during the Wars of Scottish Independence, King Edward I tried to stop them from reaching Scotland. Meanwhile, Robert the Bruce used them for daring hit-and-run attacks, sometimes covering 60 to 70 miles in a single day, an incredible distance for the 1300s. The Irish Hobby appears in old records and even in the poem The Bruce, where a rider is said to have "on his hobie swiftly ran." These horses were not built for heavy loads, but for speed, quick movement, and long days in the saddle. Over time, warfare changed, moving to archers on horseback and later to gunpowder weapons. The hobilar disappeared, and the pure Irish hobby faded with it. But their speed and endurance left a mark, mixing into English and Scottish horses, and some experts believe they helped form the early lines that later produced the thoroughbred. Number 12. Spanish Jennet. In medieval Spain, there was a riding horse so smooth and easy to sit that people could travel all day without feeling sore. This was the Spanish Jennet, a small horse with a gentle four-beat gait that made rough roads feel almost comfortable. Standing low but moving with a natural glide, it became a favorite for nobles, messengers, and soldiers who needed to ride long distances without tiring. The word jennet comes from the Spanish word jinet, meaning a light horseman who rode with short stirrups and valued agility. Both the riding style and the horse itself spread across Europe. When Spain began exploring and colonizing the Caribbean and the Americas, they brought Andalusians, Spanish barbs, and Spanish jennets on their ships. In the New World, these horses mixed with others and gave rise to breeds like the Paso Fino and other colonial Spanish horses famous for their smooth ride. Historians say the original Spanish Jennet is now extinct, but its bloodlines and its trademark comfortable gait survive in its descendants. Scientists have even linked that smooth ride to a mutation in the DMRT3 gene, which changes the way a horse's legs move. Today, there is a modern American breed called the Spanish Jennet horse, known for its spotted coat, but it is not the same as the medieval horse. It just carries the old name. Number 11. The Neapolitan. The Neapolitan was the star horse of the Kingdom of Naples from the 1500s through the Baroque era. It was strong and stylish, with a proud neck and a high-stepping trot. It was used both in war and for show, able to perform the dramatic jumps and moves of classical riding. Riders at the time praised its bravery and beauty, and by the 1600s, it was one of the most admired horses in Europe. Its bloodlines helped shape famous breeds. Two stallions, Conversano born in 1767 and Neapolitano born in 1790, became foundation sires of the Lipizzaner, a breed still performing at the Spanish riding school today. The Kladruber, a ceremonial carriage horse of the Habsburgs, also carries Spanish and Neapolitan blood. By the early 1900s, armies no longer needed this kind of warhorse, and breeding shifted to other types. The original Neapolitan disappeared, absorbed into breeds like the Lipizzaner and the Mergese, and many experts consider it extinct. In Italy today, there is a small group called the Napolitano, recognized as a rare breed. In 2005, only 20 mares and 4 stallions were registered, and it is listed as critically endangered. While it is not the same as the old warhorse, it still carries the name and some of its history. Number 10. Nisaean horse. More than 2,000 years ago, the most famous horses in the Persian Empire came from one place, the Nisaean plain in Media, at the foot of the Zagros Mountains near today's Hamadan in Iran. This land had rich grass that was perfect for raising strong animals, and it was here that the Persians bred the Nisaean horse, a mount only the king could ride. Ancient writers could not stop praising them. The historian Herodotus said the Persians kept 10 sacred Nisaean horses that always marched ahead of the king, and even King Xerxes had his chariot pulled by them. He also claimed these horses were larger and better than any found in India. The philosopher Aristotle even used horses of Nisaea as the measure for speed in his writings, showing how far their fame had reached. The royal stables chose only the best horses from the Nisaean plain, looking for size, beauty, and speed. They became the pride of the Persian cavalry and the centerpiece of royal parades. Historians place the plain along the road between Holwan and Hamadan, deep in the heart of ancient Media. We can still see them today in stone carvings at Persepolis, where they are shown leading royal processions, exactly as the old texts describe. The Nisaean horse no longer exists as a pure breed. There is no official record or bloodline left, but their legacy lives on in history, remembered as the power and pride behind Persia's greatest armies and royal displays. Number 9. The Fergana horse. Over 2,000 years ago, China went to war for a horse. In 104 BC, the Han Empire wanted the fast and powerful horses of Daiwan, a kingdom in what is now Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. These horses were so valued that Chinese records called them heavenly horses. At first, Emperor Wu of Han tried to buy them, but when his envoys were killed, he ordered his general Li Guangli to take them. The first attack failed. The second time, the Han sent about 60,000 foot soldiers, 30,000 cavalry, and large herds of pack animals. They surrounded the city of Ershi, near today's Kujand, and this time they won. China took around 3,000 horses from Daiwan, but only about 1,000 survived the long journey home. They also made a deal for Daiwan to send 2 of their best horses to the emperor every year. The Han even brought back alfalfa seeds, which were perfect for feeding and breeding strong war horses. Ancient records claimed some of these Fergana horses sweated blood. Today, experts believe this was caused by a parasite called Parafilaria multipapillosa, which can leave bloody marks on a horse's shoulders and neck in warm weather. The original Fergana horse no longer exists, but its legacy shaped history. It pushed China deeper into Central Asia, improved their cavalry for wars with the Xiongnu, and may have influenced later breeds like the Akalteke, though that link is still debated. One thing is certain, these horses were worth fighting for. Number 8. Bityug horse. In the 1700s, farmers along the Bityug River in what is now Russia's Voronezh region created one of the strongest horses the country had ever seen. They called it the Bityug, and it was so well known for its size and strength that Bityug even became slang in Russia for a big, powerful person. Breeders started with large local steppe mares and crossed them with Dutch and Danish stallions brought in during and after the time of Peter the Great. Later, they added some Orloff Trotter blood from nearby studs to give the horse better movement. The result was a massive draft animal with a wide chest, a strong back, heavy bone, and sometimes feathering on the legs. Most were bay, gray, or piebald, and some reached 70 inches tall at the shoulder. The Bityug was the work engine of its day. It hauled huge loads of farm goods, timber, and carts over rough country roads in Russia's central Black Earth region. The area where it was bred was also home to the famous Krenov stud, which produced the Orloff Trotter, showing how important the region was for horse breeding. By the middle of the 1800s, the pure Bityug was disappearing. Crossbreeding with other horses changed its type, and much of the open pasture it needed was lost to farmland. Writers of the time were already saying it was nearly gone. Today, it is extinct, living on only in old artwork, museum pieces, and the traits it passed to other regional breeds. Number 7. Norfolk Trotter. Back in the 17th and 18th centuries, when Britain's roads were rough, muddy, and often dangerous, there was one horse that could handle the job better than any other. It could trot quickly for miles, carry a heavy rider, and still arrive looking fresh and sharp. This was the Norfolk Trotter. Standing around 60 to 64 inches tall, it had a slim but powerful build that made it perfect for delivering mail, carrying important passengers, and traveling long distances before trains, stagecoaches, and cars were even a thing. Its family history was just as impressive. The stallion Old Shales, born in 1755, was its foundation sire. He was the son of Blaze, a thoroughbred stallion whose father was the legendary Flying Childers, one of the fastest horses in Britain's history. This mix of pure speed and working strength gave the Norfolk Trotter unmatched stamina. These roadsters were later bred with thoroughbreds to create the hackney, the flashy, high-stepping show and carriage horse still seen today. The Norfolk Trotter even made its mark in America when a stallion named Belfounder was imported in 1822. He sired the Charles Kent mare, whose foal, Hambletonian 10, became the foundation sire of the standard bred, the main harness racing horse in the United States. By the late 1800s, railways and motor vehicles had taken over long-distance travel, and the pure Norfolk Trotter vanished. But its bloodline is still alive in every powerful standard bred on the racetrack and every hackney in the show ring, carrying forward its speed and endurance. Number 6. Galloway Pony. In the southwest of Scotland, there was once a small, lightning-fast pony that could go where many horses would not dare. This was the Galloway Pony. It stood around 48 to 56 inches tall, with a neat head, clean legs, and usually a light bay or brown coat with black legs. People loved it because it was tough, quick, and able to handle rough, hilly ground with ease. It had a smooth, fast stride, and many of them preferred to pace instead of trot, which made long rides over rocky or muddy paths much easier for the rider. During the days of the border raiders who moved between Scotland and England, it was the horse of choice, fast enough to strike and vanish into the hills before anyone could catch them. But the Galloway Pony was not only for raiding. In the 1700s, it worked in Swaledale carrying heavy loads of lead ore, a grueling job that needed a small, but extremely strong and fearless pony. Stories of its speed became legendary. In the 1800s, people told of one Galloway traveling 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours, and others riding 100 miles in a single day. These were not just tall tales. They showed how much respect people had for this pony's ability. The Galloway's blood helped create the Dales pony, and the Fell pony also has its influence. But by the mid-1800s, crossbreeding for larger farm horses meant the pure Galloway pony was gone. Today, its name survives in Australia as a height class for horses between 56 and 60 inches tall. Number 5. Trait du Maine. In the early 1830s, farmers in France's Old Maine region set out to create a strong, dependable draft horse that could pull heavy loads and still move at a steady trot. This region included Mayenne and parts of Sarthe and Maine-et-Loire. They started by crossing sturdy local mares with Percheron stallions. But because Percheron officials would not register horses born outside their home area, the Maine breeders kept their own stud book. In 1926, the French government recognized the Trait du Maine as its own breed, and by 1929, it was thriving, with as many as 25,000 foals born each year. These horses were sold across France's rich grain belt and even shipped to Spain. The Trait du Maine was usually black or gray, built with a broad chest, strong legs, and very little feathering. Mares stood about 63 inches tall at the shoulder, stallions about 65, and some champions reached 67 inches. They were shorter and stockier than Percherons, but shared the same calm, steady nature. Many carried the SM brand on the left side of the neck, marking them as horses from the Maine studs. They worked hard on farms, pulled artillery, and hauled goods at the trot. But after World War II, tractors and trucks quickly replaced them. On April 26, 1965, the Maine Breed Society merged with the Percheron Society, and by 1966, the stud book was closed. From then on, the Trait du Maine name vanished, leaving behind the memory of a horse that had powered French farms between the wars. Number 4. Poznan horse. In west-central Poland, near the city of Poznan, breeders once created a horse that could handle almost any job. Called the Poznan, or Poznan, it was the kind of horse that could pull a cart full of goods during the week, and then carry a rider smoothly over rough roads on the weekend. It was not a huge, slow draft horse, and it was not a delicate racehorse. It was the perfect balance of strength, endurance, and comfort. Breeding focused on 3 main studs, Posadowo, Rakot, and Gogolewo, where local mares were crossed with Arabian, thoroughbred, Trakehner, and Hanoverian stallions. This gave the horses speed, stamina, and a solid athletic build. Rakot became a state horse stud in 1928 and was one of the first government-run breeding centers in Poland. The Poznan was known for being dependable and versatile. Farmers used it for plowing, hauling, and riding, and it could work long hours without tiring easily. But by the middle of the 20th century, its numbers began to decline. In the 1960s, breeders decided to combine the Poznan with another local type, the Mazuri, also called the Masarin, to form a new national warm blood called the Wielkopolski, meaning Great Poland horse. This officially happened around 1963 to 1964, and some people still called it the Mazursko-Poznański. The Poznan name disappeared, but its bloodline lives on in the Wielkopolski, which is still used in Poland today for riding, driving, and sports, like show jumping and eventing. Number 3. Yorkshire Coach Horse. In Victorian Britain, one horse stood out as the ultimate show of wealth and style, the Yorkshire Coach Horse. It was built to pull coaches quickly over long distances while looking impressive enough to turn heads. Breeders in Yorkshire made it by crossing strong Cleveland Bay mares with fast, graceful thoroughbred stallions. The result was a taller, quicker, and more refined carriage horse, perfect for the smoother roads of the time. It had the raw pulling power needed for heavy coaches, but the long legs and elegance of a racehorse. Most Yorkshire coach horses were bay or brown, with black points, standing between 64 and 68 inches tall at the shoulder. Wealthy owners often bought perfectly matched pairs, same height, same color, so their turnouts looked flawless. To many foreign buyers, they were almost impossible to tell apart from the best Cleveland Bays, which is why many Yorkshire coach horses sent overseas ended up being registered as Cleveland Bays. The breed got its own stud book in 1886, aiming for horses that were 3/4 Cleveland Bay and 1/4 thoroughbred. In North America, they were recorded simply as Cleveland Bays, since there was no separate registry. During London's high season, hundreds of pairs filled Hyde Park, and they were sold worldwide as the finest carriage horses money could buy, earning the nickname the Rolls-Royce of the 19th century. When cars took over, demand for coach horses disappeared. The stud book closed in 1936, and the Yorkshire coach horse vanished as a breed. Its name is gone, but its bloodline still lives on in Cleveland Bay and thoroughbred crosses. Number 2. Strelets horse. In the 1800s, in what is now Ukraine's Luhansk region, breeders developed a fast and elegant cavalry horse called the Strelets. It had the graceful look of an Arabian but was a bit bigger and built for speed. At the Streletsky State Stud, they crossed Arabian and Anglo-Arab or thoroughbred horses with Karabakh, Orlov-Rostopchin, Persian, and Turkmeni lines. The Arabian traits stood out the most, which is why many Strelets horses were a beautiful silver gray. They stood about 60 to 63 inches tall at the shoulder, with the refined head and high tail of an Arabian, but with extra height and quick movement. The Strelets was not just made for war. In 1867, a stallion named Bivouac won a gold medal at the Paris Exposition, proving this cavalry horse could also shine in the show ring. But its story changed after the Russian Revolution and Civil War. Almost the entire breed was lost. With only 2 stallions, Tsenatel, born in 1910, and Cylinder, born in 1911, plus a few mares left alive. In 1925, Marshal Semyon Budyonny sent them to the Tursk stud in the North Caucasus in an effort to save them. There, breeders crossed them with Arabian stallions like Kohalin IV, Marash, and Nasim. Sadly, the small number of survivors meant the Strelets could not last as its own breed. It officially disappeared, but its blood lives on in the Tursk horse, recognized in 1948, and in breeds like the Don and Kustanai. Number 1. Quagga. The Quagga was a zebra that looked like it had been left unfinished. The front half looked just like a regular zebra, with bold dark stripes on its head and neck, but those stripes faded into a plain brown toward the back, making it seem part zebra and part horse. These animals lived in big herds across South Africa's Karoo and the Southern Free State. In the 1800s, hunters killed them in huge numbers for meat, hides, and to make room for livestock. By the late 1870s, no wild quaggas were left. The very last one, a female in Amsterdam's Artis Zoo, died on August 12, 1883, but no one knew at the time that it was the last of its kind. Today, the entire world only has 23 mounted skins and 7 complete skeletons in museums. For years, people believed there was only one photo of a living quagga, but more have turned up, including several from the London Zoo, and even one taken in South Africa in 1864 by G.T. Fritsch. In 1984, the quagga became the first extinct animal to have its DNA studied. Scientists found it was not a separate species, but a southern subspecies of the plains zebra that split around 120,000 to 290,000 years ago. Since 1987, the Quagga project in South Africa has been breeding zebras with fewer stripes and brown backs to look like quaggas. These Rao quaggas are not the real thing, but they bring back a glimpse of this unusual animal, whose name likely came from its bark-like call. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.